Bonjour, baddies. Welcome back to a video. Today we are at the Luray Car Museum, and Caravan Museum, and Carriage Museum. So yeah, let's go in. So this is one of the very old horse carriages. This is called a Portuguese nobility carriage, and this is the mid-18th century, so basically like the 1700s-ish. So basically, as you guys can see, it's a very fancy design. This is actually one of the oldest carriages on permanent display in the United States, and this is only reserved for like the richest of people, and only 2 people could sit in it at once, and it was usually pulled by 2 or 4 horses. So basically it's for very rich people, basically, like nobility, which is why it's called the nobility carriage. So this is a wicker baby buggy. So basically it's like like a basket that you put your children in, and when it goes by, you can people can see your child because you want to flex about your child, I assume. And it also had a lot of mechanisms to make it easier for the baby and the parents, including a brake to stop it from coasting when the parents stopped to yap to other people about how good their baby was. And here it writes, this is cute, but here it writes that its motive power was one proud father. So adorable. So in this entire museum, this is the earliest car that is used, pushed by not horses, but actually like an engine that we could find. This is a Pugiot, or however you pronounce it, I'm so sorry, I probably butchered that, but its top speed was 20 miles per hour. Well, it was old. It was 1899. How fast did you expect it to go? This is like the beginning of all cars, and its horsepower was 4. So it's basically like a carriage, but without the horses. So I guess they had to start somewhere. Look, they had to start somewhere, and this was made in Paris, France. So it's a little French buggy. So behind me, this is a 1909 Middleby, and this was actually found right here in the town where we are right now, Luray in Virginia. And the good old days when you could buy a car under $1,000. This was $850 in 1909. Obviously, its value has gone up substantially, but according to the people at the museum, this is, as far as they know, the only Middleby in existence. So it's very rare, so take it in. Right here behind me, the 1914 King engine. This is actually one of the world's very first V8 engines. As you guys can see, this engine is very clunky. No wonder the cars were so long in the front, because they had to stick those in. Obviously, our engines nowadays are much more compact and easier to fix and carry around. This thing could probably be used for weightlifting. So this is one of the more primitive designs of trucks, but it's actually an auto wagon, but it looks more like a truck because it's long compared to everything else. As you guys can see in the back, there's a little area where you can carry all your stuff. This is a 1913 model, and it now has 20 horsepower, so they're evolving. This was actually one of probably the earliest ideas of trucks, and people just use this to carry stuff from here to there, A to B, B to A. car behind me is like genuinely really cute because it literally has a mother-in-law seat. So like basically when the couple got married, they would take the mother-in-law for a ride in their fancy car. So I think that's really cute, and also the color of the car is genuinely rather aesthetic. Y'all have probably heard of this brand before. This is a Mercedes-Benz, also known as the car that all the fancy people pull up in, and or slash a Porsche, and or slash an Lamborghini. Anyway, so this is this is the 1928 version of the Mercedes-Benz. It was actually only originally used for racing because of its sleek, sporty look. Well, obviously we don't see that now. Looks more like a vintage carriage. That you would expect an old person to pull up in the street in and tell you that back in their day they yada yada yada. But back then this is an extremely sleek and sporty image to be driving one of these, and it was also rather expensive, considering the fact that back then you could probably buy a car for like maybe $1,000 and this was $15,000. Of course this is a sports car, so you don't see many people driving around in a Lamborghini because obviously those are very expensive. So this is basically the Lamborghinis of 1928. Alright, so this is a 1931 Morgan, built in England. So this is a rather quick car of the time, as written in the description, and it only has 3 wheels, going up to 60 miles per hour, which was extremely fast at the time. Obviously, that's like about the speed of an average highway, but if you went that for the entire way, it obviously would break down, because you're not supposed to do that in a 1931 car. However, since this was also a 3-wheel car, there are 2 seats, one for the driver, one for the passenger. As you guys can see, back then the drivers actually sat on the right if your vehicle is going like that, because usually nowadays the driver would sit on your left, and the passenger would sit on the right, but back then the driver sits on the right, the passenger sits on the left. So it's a little bit wonky. As you guys can see, it looks more like a bike than really a car. Like, you see the wheels are like sticking out. It gives one reminiscent memories of ladybugs. Love pulling up in a new Bugatti, except if the Bugatti looked like this. This is a very old design of a Bugatti. Obviously this is 1932. It's rather sleek, and even back then it was considered an expensive car for all the fancy aristocrats out there. I keep playing like the song I pulled up in a new Bugatti in my head over and over when I look at this car, but you probably don't want to pull up in this unless you want to get laughed at. This is a 1941 Lincoln, which is actually a rather famous brand, not because it's very popular nowadays, but simply because its historical significance. So as you guys can see behind me, this is actually the only Lincoln of its type that was ever built, mostly because it was custom made for the now late Edsel Ford. And as you guys can see, it's a very sleek model, and it has 120 horsepower, which is very impressive for its time. So that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye!